Good evening, and we begin with breaking and heartbreaking news tonight at 5 o'clock. A missing Vancouver mother and daughter have been found dead. Vancouver police say the bodies of Michelle Melendez and her daughter Layla Stewart were discovered in a rural area near Washougal. This is just off Southeast Sunset View Road. Officers say they were able to identify them based on unique genetic markings, while family and friends search elsewhere for Michelle and Layla throughout the day.
And this development marks a sudden, tragic end for a family that have told us over and over the last 48 hours they were trying to stay strong. They were hoping against hope their loved ones would come home. Meanwhile, Michelle Melendez's boyfriend, whom Vancouver police have named as a person of interest in their disappearance, appeared earlier today in Clark County Court. That hearing connected to a murder Kirkland Warren is accused of committing in Arkansas. Though this evening there are growing concerns based on court documents that not enough was done to protect Michelle. Let's go to Mike Benner in Vancouver. And Mike, there are no words for this family tonight.
No, David, there are no words. Tonight, a mother and her little girl are dead. In all likelihood, this is criminal in nature. It makes me sick to my stomach to think about little Layla's final moments, even Michelle's. All you can really do is pray if you're a person of faith. As far as the discovery of their bodies, we can tell you it was around 9:30 this morning. Somebody was driving along Southeast Sunset View Road in rural Washougal. They spotted what they thought were life-sized mannequins down a steep embankment in thick brush. As you can imagine, law enforcement rushed to the scene and they discovered the bodies they now believe to be Michelle and Layla, bringing to an end a days-long search.
It is icky and muddy, and it's gross, and it's dark in some places over by the waters and whatnot.
Late Wednesday morning in northeast Vancouver, family, friends, even complete strangers scour Beaver Marsh for any sign of Michelle Melendez and Layla Stewart.
You can do everything you want from the couch, but when you're out here and you're actually looking and you're actually doing the work and helping the family, that gives them so much more closure than it would by just saying, we hope that you're going to get the answers you need.
Holly Matheny does not know Michelle and Layla, but she's heartbroken over their disappearance. Detectives say the mother and daughter were last seen March 12th in the area of Northeast 77th Avenue and Vancouver Mall Drive. Family is desperate to find them.
We haven't seen them since last Sunday. Nobody's talked to them or heard them since last Sunday, and that's not normal. That is definitely not normal.
Family is pointing the finger at Michelle's boyfriend, Kirkland Warren, who authorities are calling a person of interest in the case. This is due in large part to the couple's rocky past and Warren's criminal past. In addition to a pending murder case in Arkansas, Warren is accused of shooting up Michelle's apartment in December. Police arrested him in early March, and according to court papers, Warren immediately jumped on the jail phone with Michelle and pressured her to drop the charges. It didn't end there, though. When Warren bailed out of jail, he again ignored court orders and contacted Michelle. In fact, a witness recalls seeing Warren with Michelle and Layla just before they vanished.
He was the last person to see them alive.
Because this contact was a violation of his parole, police arrested Warren again just this last weekend. According to court documents, in a jailhouse phone call with his dad, Warren suggested he may have done more than just get in touch with Michelle. In late Wednesday, awful news out of rural Washougal. 2 bodies had been found, and police believe them to be Michelle and Layla.
All right, circling back to Kirkland Warren for a moment, we understand that a judge presiding over his murder case in Arkansas found out what was happening here in Washington and revoked his bond in Arkansas. He's now being held in the Clark County Jail on a fugitive from justice charge, and now probably much, much more. Back to you.
Mike Benner in Vancouver. Mike, we appreciate your compassion, your empathy, and your reporting. Thank you.
Just heart-wrenching, and many are wondering why the court didn't order GPS monitoring for Kirkland Warren after his arrest for shooting up Melendez's apartment. Our Ashley Corsland's been researching that issue and joins us here in the studio. Ashley.
Yeah, Laurel and David, this type of monitoring is allowed under a Washington law. It's called the Tiffany Hill Act, and it aims to protect survivors of domestic violence. We have covered it extensively here at KGW. So a little background, it was signed into law in 2020. It was named after a Vancouver mother named Tiffany Hill, who you're seeing here. She was murdered by her estranged abusive husband in 2019. This law allows courts to order people accused of domestic violence to wear GPS ankle devices. They can be monitored by officials and then linked to an app on the victim's phone, which alerts them when the offender is nearby. So when Kirkland Warren's case appeared in Clark County Court in early March, well, he was ordered not to have contact with Michelle Melendez, and prosecutors determined he posed an extreme risk to her. In fact, a risk assessment found that Warren scored 31 on a scale of 1 to 18 for danger, so extreme risk. But Clark County prosecutors did not ask for Warren to have that electronic monitoring pending any trial, and the court chose not to order it either. Instead, Warren was granted bail and was released. Days later is when Michelle Melendez and her daughter Layla disappeared. This is a scenario that domestic violence advocates say happens far too often, and something must change.
Why isn't electronic monitoring being used consistently? I think that that's a really important question that we need to answer. We need to understand the barriers to figure out how we can make sure that this is a system that works for survivors and our communities.
Now, we did want to find out why the Clark County Prosecuting Attorney's Office did not request this GPS monitoring for Warren, despite the fact he presented an extreme danger to his girlfriend, Michelle Melendez. Well, we contacted the office several times, and so far, no one, David, has responded to us.
And that raises so many questions in and of itself. Thank you, Ashley, for that context. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, know that there is help. You can call or text the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is on your screen, 800-799-7233. We have continuing coverage of this tragedy as we learn more tonight at 6:30 and on KGW News at 11.
In other news tonight, the state legislature continues to keep the homelessness and housing crisis as a top priority. Last night, they passed an aggressive $200 million package to address the crisis statewide. It now heads to the governor's desk. Because lawmakers passed the bills early in the session, resources will be available in coming months. One of the bills funds the governor's $130 million homelessness state of emergency, and that includes increasing shelter capacity and getting people off the streets in certain areas where homelessness is worse. The other bill is aimed at speeding up housing production across the state.
Homelessness is not an urban problem, it's an Oregon problem, and we need to address it on a statewide basis.
And the reason that it passed early is because we've got to start building houses now. And this is a tool that gives partnership between all local jurisdictions and the state.
Governor Tina Kotek praised lawmakers for their quick work. While there was bipartisan support, Republicans argued there needs to be robust housing bills to follow and attention to Measure 110.
To Clackamas County now, and a sudden 180 from the county on a plan that could have moved more than 100 people who are homeless into transitional housing. As Daisy Caballero reports, it's at least in part because Chair Tootie Smith, it seems, buckled under public pressure.
I have decided to change my vote on Project TurnKey.
Chair and Commissioner Tootie Smith says she changed her yes vote after the people of Clackamas County said they needed to be engaged in the sale process and ultimately needed more time. That means the county will not purchase the Quality Inn that would have turned into 100 rooms of transitional shelter to get people off the street.
It will not proceed on the vote. The vote now changes 2-3, and the motion failed.
She announced they'll hold a series of summits on homelessness where the public, business owners, faith community, medical professionals, and elected local leaders will come together to discuss steps moving forward. The board will create a committee to discuss ways to tackle homelessness successfully. And the board will also ask voters whether the legislature should overturn Measure 110.
The legalization of deadly and addictive drugs through Measure 110 is in part responsible for the crime and homelessness and mayhem we see on our streets. Addictions and mental health must be addressed before any real success can be realized for the homeless.
A Change.org petition against buying the motel outlines some of the opposition Smith alludes to. One person saying this action would negatively impact the thousands of small businesses in the vicinity, as well as the residents that live here. While another one says the implementation of this homeless shelter would attract crime, open drug use, and a general sense of insecurity to a thriving business district. Chair Smith also added that while Project TurnKey would have addressed many of these issues, the project's acceptance within Clackamas County is not quite there yet. Daisy Caballero, KGW News.